Ironically, I'm multitasking at the moment, and I've had to click through a captcha 2 times, not just once, twice, because you got to do everything twice now, because everything's wildly inefficient by design, not coincidence. These are some of the bookmarks I have on TikTok. Sometimes I'll come back and I'll bark at you guys and illustrate things. Sometimes I don't get around to it. On the top left, it says our tax money. It's not our tax money. We signed a W-2, which means we consented to allowing somebody to steal from us. It makes absolutely no fucking sense whatsoever. Those are also the wartime flag of the District of Columbia in this stupid little cartoon. I realize I'm not playing it, but people are misleading others by example. And good people aren't thinking for themselves, which means good people aren't challenging propaganda such as that. Top middle, you're going to see Ian, who likes to talk about BlackRock. He never talks about the trilateral city-states because Ian either works for these bastards or he does not know what the fuck he's talking about. BlackRock and Vanguard are two narratives. They do exist, these, companies, so to speak. But no one ever talks about who set this shit up and who's actually pulling the strings behind them. I mean, he's essentially talking about puppets. It's just as good as waxing poetic about a fucking steward of the corporation superficial people call a president. So with both of those ideas well in mind, the top left, this guy's going to say the workplace is a dystopian humiliation ritual. And I don't disagree with that, but nothing's for the people by the people. In other words, all these things have been corrupted. What did I say about you consenting, and I, to work a job? You sign a W-2, which means you just forfeited any chance of arguing that somebody's stealing from you. In other words, you can't collect your 100% of your labor anymore. You're working for free. So there's another video I left on YouTube where a guy essentially says, that we're just giving everything back that we do make because it's a fucking trap, and it is. What he failed to mention was he didn't bring up, materialism, which has to do with Saturnal, Satanal, our skin on our bodies, and the, system that you and I are a part of, because that's motherfucking Earth. It's usually what you'll hear people, especially having to do with our masters, shop around in the narrative these days in particular. There's a big emphasis on it, because there was a changing of the guard. In other words, things are less spiritual than ever before and more material than ever before. Jupiter has to do with in, Saturnal, Satanal has to do without. And nobody's going to fucking teach you that because people don't have a clue what they're talking about. And that's something superficial to me, ironically. It's one of those things I feel comfortable telling people because they should have figured that much out by now, but they're not thinking for themselves. It's also why you and I have access to things like TikTok and YouTube. Because people are shopping around propaganda, they're not thinking for themselves. They're circulating our masters' narratives, which is openly what our masters stated in a public transcript having to do with the Davos panel, which is the public forum, the flip side of the Bilderberg group. And they said they were going to give us numerous forms of communication to echo their narratives. I'm paraphrasing it. But what it boils down to is you and I were trained to carry around a cell phone, AOL discs were free, and social media is free so that we circulate their propaganda. I mean, would you agree that quite a few people out there call themselves non-binary and don't know the difference between a man and a woman? It's one example of the propaganda. Another would be people who buy into controlled opposition Terrence Howard and or are part of the alphabet community having to do with social engineering, which is connected to and courtesy of the Tavistock Institute, which is intimately connected with eugenics and firmly rooted in fascist ideology. If you have not figured that much out, it tracks, but you'd have to be able to connect the dots and think for yourself. So the reason I mentioned Terrence Howard and I mentioned the alphabet community is another example of propaganda is both of them, coincidentally at the same time, are telling you that 1 times 1 no longer equals 1. Because it's a pack of lies, and gullible people are repeating them. More importantly, things like that are being circulated on the DARPA internet. If you're dumbing yourself down, or you're just dumb, If you're using emojis, if you're truncating your words, TikTok is a fine example of this. If you put a bunch of asinine fucking noises in your video, and you put a bunch of dancing fucking cartoons in your video, and other things on par with idiocracy, your video will be circulated because you're a fool. If you don't do these things, your video will probably not be circulated because you're doing the right thing. You have standards and priorities, and you're trying to set an example for others. I'm speaking from experience. So, getting down to why I clicked record almost 6 minutes later, some walking disclaimer statement. The guy on the top left, the workplace is a dystopian humiliation ritual. It's not for the people, by the people. So another way this cuts is it is promoting fascism. In other words, communism. If you don't know what I'm talking about, again, walking disclaimer statement. Hitler openly stated that the color scheme of the Nazi flag represents communism because that Nazi horseshit was communism. It's a shade of fascism. You don't believe me? Look up the Nationalist Socialist Party, whatever the fuck they were called, the Nazis. And because they were Nazis, they had to rename it, and they named it the Communist Party. This is the Hegelian dialectic in full swing. The flip side of this was Karl Marx, who happened to also be a Jesuit. Big surprise! And this is quite literally the red versus the blue. Only our masters dress things up as something that they're not. They don't openly state that, the Nazis are communists. But it's the same bullshit. And it's the same bullshit that's being circulated today. Also bear in mind, democracy is a shade of fascism. Because the Republic fell during the Civil War, was finalized in 1871 when the Organic Act turned America into a fucking corporation in all capital letters, despite what Google will lie to you about. And citizens became debt slaves in 1913. These things are relevant, but people don't connect the dots. They don't think for themselves. They don't reason things out, and they don't appreciate things like this. So, this guy on the top left talking about the workplace is a dystopian humiliation ritual. This does, by extension, promote communism if you're thinking about it. In other words, the workplace is a bad thing. We should do away with the workplace. What we should do, and I'll parallel this with another thought if I remember it, what we should be doing is, being concerned with reconstituting the republic and seeing that things are for the people, by the people. A great example of that would be our fucking food supply. Because that was hijacked. Food was rebranded as organic. Gullible people started repeating it, and that opened up the door to genetically modified poison. Just like calling cross-dressing something that it's not. Nudge, nudge, something, something, use your brain, motherfucker. I had another thought a minute ago. I don't remember it. Maybe I'll stop this in a little bit and then dance back, listen to it, remind myself, and then record it. I don't know if I'll get to that. We'll see. This is the other video that I left online to parallel with what I'm driving at in terms of promoting communism. And people don't get it. It's also why these videos are being circulated, which I already said, the propaganda is circulated. It's this one up top that says, just change the title. Oh, no, it's not that one. I lied. It's the one with a bunch of views. That's the one. It says, finally someone said it. And it's because I haven't heard somebody say this. I've been waiting, and I thought about spoon-feeding people some of this. But I'm trying not to give you, the horse and the fucking cart. I want you to put in the fucking time. That was a horrible analogy, but just the same. Here's what this guy's shopping around, and unfortunately, he's not bright enough to not use the N-word. I frown on censorship, but I also wouldn't run around calling myself cracka. And I wouldn't call other people cracka. Because it's derogatory horseshit, and it's absolutely counterproductive. But what the fuck do I know?
Working for free. What you mean? Nigga, you work, you get paid, but then you got bills. You giving it right back to them. It's just like going back and forth. Like, it's just, you just work. It's like, because the niggas that's printing the money, they don't need it. This shit is about control, nigga. But how money ain't real and I can hold it though? What you mean? You can hold it, but is it like really yours? You gonna give it back? For you to give it back to them. They're like they force you to give it back to them. You gotta pay to live.
Every day, like another day, another dollar. Every day you gotta spend money. Yeah.
That's why I gotta step up.
You can't be homeless. You gotta get somewhere.
On me.
You got bills to pay.
On me.
One too many thoughts. See, throughout the years, I've been telling you this in not so many words, but people don't connect the dots. Keep stressing, and usually the way I'll put it is you have to rent everything you think you need, including what you do need. Typically, you have to pay for water, shelter, food, etc., etc. Would you agree? Meanwhile, you're paying unconstitutional taxes. Usually, you're working a 5-day, a job 5 days a week, ridiculous hours, demeaning horse shit to varying degrees. And keep in mind, it varies based on the different walks of life. But by and large, you and I are slave stock. We're debt slaves. Most of us. I mean, there's some yuppies out there who are a little bit above, where you and I are at. And they're contributing to the disparity. But they're also in this trap, by and large. I've been rattling that off for fucking years. And no one fucking connected to the dots. Which is why when I saw this online, this is lowbrow, retarded shit. I mean, if you listen to how these guys are, dressing this up, it's not the finest fucking example. But people who are being shown this online, and people like this video, despite the fact I've been saying this for longer than, my wilderness years, which is over a decade. I've been saying this since my teens, to be perfectly honest. But people aren't thinking for themselves. It's terrifying. One of the other things I wanted to highlight in here is 2 people left comments, and I recorded another video earlier and I left it on this channel because this guy said, "True story, bro," and I think I said something along the lines of he didn't leave a thoughtful comment because he used our master's emojis, which are written into the algorithm to dumb people down so they don't articulate themselves. In real life, I wouldn't be doing things like that. I don't think most of you probably should, but some of you are into that type of thing. I think this is the bottom of the barrel. But I have people argue in favor of emojis because they're fucking retarded. The other thing I highlighted is now we've got cookie cutter prepackaged garbage. So our masters will think for you so you don't articulate yourself in any form or way. If you were to choose words, instead you just choose one of these, system tree options. It's true. Whatever the fuck those 2 little yellow hands mean. A handshake, I suppose. You don't need that. Use your fucking words. Words have power. Or no doubt. These are my options. And it's ridiculous. This is counterproductive. It is retarded. This is not how things should be. It is divisive. And this is currently being employed on fucking YouTube. Now, better than that, there are 2 comments, as it states up top, comments, and you see the number 2 next to it. I only see 1, and I'm scrolling up because sometimes they hide them lower down, especially if I comment, it's lower down and there's a gap, because this is really efficient. So I got to click on this, got to click on something else. Keep in mind, I posted this last night, and now I can see both. That's retarded. That's an extra step. That's retraining people's brains not to think efficiently. What's the quickest, line between, A and B? A straight. I said it poorly. Hopefully, you guys know what the fuck I'm talking about. That was a shit example. So, on that note, I'll complain about how this kid dressed this up. Is this what? With? What's he trying to spell here? WTH? It's not a word. Is he talking about homeless man? As long as the earth is here, we are never homeless. Earth is your turf and the home. What the fuck does that mean? GTFOH? Retards don't spell their words. With that homeless. And then he left an emoji in here because he's very bright. That's a control word. And he's so bright he didn't punctuate this. Maybe he's talking on his phone. Sometimes it doesn't do it. Especially on YouTube. I'm speaking from experience again. It doesn't use commas either. When I bark at this thing, I have to do it usually. And that's fine because, I mean, we should be, putting in the time and being thorough. Just the same. He's rattling off this homeless jazz. People do need a shelter. And I do understand an aspect of where he's coming from having to do with this. What I should just tell you is, if you've ever heard of homeless folks being demonized and whatnot, it's because technically they're debt slaves. Most of them do have a social security number and a birth certificate is what I'm saying. But they're not playing the game. And that's why there's a war on homelessness. Just so you know. In other words, they're not putting bread on our masters' tables like you and I are trained to do in public school. You with me? Probably not, because you probably won't see this video. It's 16 minutes long. It's not, what is this? A minute? A minute and 30 seconds, which is pretty surprising that as many people have seen it. Because usually if I post something, it has to be under a minute. Let's find one. So I thought I posted some short ones on here. Those aren't it, though. Right here. Granola, 10 seconds. Which is catering to doing away with attention spans. And almost 500 people were shown it. This is not unlike the algorithm showing people propaganda. In stark contrast to shit that would benefit you, is my point. Here's another one. 18 seconds and 1,000 people saw it. That's pretty uncommon for me, usually. With these shorter videos. This one caught me off guard too. I used goat. But if you click on it, there's an image of a goat. And I suspect because I used goat, which is also being shopped around as a social engineering word, and there's a goat imagery, there's goat imagery in the video. I think that's why, but I could be wrong. You never know. This one is phone. Just the same. What the fuck do I know? I'm trying to help you guys. Been doing this long term, and it doesn't go well. And it hasn't gone well is what I'm trying to say. Obviously, I'm a little burnt out. I'm struggling with my words. Let's see if, when I click on this, is it going to show me my bookmarks or is it going to show me a completely different thing? Shocked. Usually it will take me back and drag me into the feed and show me the top of the stack. That's usually what will happen to you too, typically speaking. If you look away, a squirrel farts, a baby cries, any distraction under the sun. Usually that's what happens. And that's another divisive tactic that our masters are employing currently. And these things should unnerve you. You and I should be standing up for what's right and making sure that shit like that doesn't exist. And that's a low-level example. In other words, there are greater things that we should be concerned with, and most people aren't. Because people can't connect the fucking dots anymore. What the fuck do I know? Here's what this guy had to say.
All right, so look. Let's have an honest conversation. When we think of work, we imagine tasks, duties, and responsibilities. But in reality, the modern workplace has very little to do with the work itself. The actual product or service is secondary. The real function of most jobs of today is simple: to condition your submission. Every time you walk into that building, you are stepping into a ritual space. A space that was not designed to uplift your talents.
Parallel it with going to court and asking somebody else to speak for you. And the moment you pass through those bars, you forfeit any rights. The entire process there speaks to the same thing that he's talking about. And I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree with that one bit. I've mentioned Brennan Law having to do with, the Irish, so to speak. It was honest. It was an honest system. And it benefited the people. Which is why the English came in and absolutely gutted it and killed a bunch of people so that system does not exist anymore by and large. If you look up Brennan Law and all that other junk, judges were mediators. They were versed in the books. so to speak, law books, not Black's Law bullshit. Um, but they couldn't technically affect either party that had a disagreement, is what I should say. Again, I'm struggling with my words now because I need to eat and fucking wind down. Too many thoughts, and these are my excuses. It was very different from quite literally forfeiting your rights and pretty much being, dressed up as guilty until proven innocent, which is what things are, because we are debt slaves and they don't give a flying fuck about us. And if we've gone against the corporation, you and I are fucked by and large. We're going to have to pay a monetary sanction and or waste more of our lives being incarcerated. It's quite literally our masters slapping us on the wrist, making an example out of us, just because there aren't public executions again yet. And I do mean yet.
But to slowly dismantle your dignity. Most people think that they're being paid for their skills, but in reality, the deeper truth is you're being paid for your obedience. You're being paid for your submission. That's the unspoken contract.
And appreciate, most jobs, you're not going to make enough to ever get ahead. You're never going to truly be able to save to where you wouldn't have to work. The model is you work until you can retire. And then you live off, whatever that is, supposedly. And then some people, they jump around, from job to job, and then they try to live off Social Security, which is next to nothing. For quite a few, you're going to make maybe $1,300 a month, and you can barely live on that, especially today. It's also why our masters are purposely, what's the fucking word? Inflation. It's moderated, it's managed, it's man-made, it's bullshit. It's fucking bullshit. These things have always pissed me off because I never wanted to be trapped like this. But the reason you and I are both trapped in this system is because good people are gullible and they don't know what they're talking about. And they're quite literally reaffirming the narratives in place to pave the way for the agendas. Nothing has changed for the better. I'm 44 and it's only gotten worse. In the last 10 plus years, I've watched it get worse and worse, and most people don't see it for what it is. A lot of people out there are mad and they're whining about it, but they don't know what they're talking about, which means they can't band together and do anything worthwhile. They can't formulate a thoughtful fucking plan and execute it to see that these agendas are stopped dead in their place. One example would be chemtrails, which most people don't think exist, which is absolutely fucking ridiculous. These aircraft should not be taking off. They should not exist. Those chemicals sure as shit shouldn't be making it to the aircraft. And the aircraft should not be leaving the runway. Because the aircraft should not exist. There shouldn't be people who are being paid to do this who are willing to. But there are. And we're being crop dusted. It's just one example. Same applies to genetically modified poison. There should be no fucking poison in a fucking grocery store. Another example I've rattled off before is if you go to a grocery store, you're going to see a health food aisle, which some of it's actually food, but not all of it. It's like getting supplements that are supposedly organic. They're not all organic. Just so you know. And fewer are actually, real. It's really what we're talking about. But in a grocery store, you're going to see chemicals, typically speaking, kept dangerously near and or sometimes that will be in between the organic and the fucking genetically modified poison aisles, which are plentiful in every fucking grocery store you're going to go to. It's by design, not coincidence. These things leach out and will contaminate the other products. Not to mention, you wouldn't keep fucking hazardous materials, which is exactly what these chemicals are. I'm talking about things for lawn and garden. I'm talking about specifically detergents and what have you. That shit should be on on the far side of the fucking building and or in a separate space, walled off. But they're not. Because that would require effort. And that would require people to fucking think for themselves, which they're clearly not doing.
Yes, your labor is useful, but your compliance is sacred. And in this dystopian atmosphere, you are expected to ritualize your own humiliation. The
Shit like this bores me to fucking tears if you haven't. Because how many people are going to see this? So far, 28,000 have seen this. And they're like, this sounds so good. Do you hear the insulting fucking TikTok noises in the background? They were present in the other video that I highlighted too. Because these kids are catering to fucking bullshit. In other words, they're misleading you by example. And 6,485 people circulated this. This guy has traction because he doesn't know what he's talking about. I want that to be clear to you. I want you to think about it so that you appreciate what I said and why it holds water. I want you to pretend that what I just said doesn't hold water. In other words, prove to yourself that it does. Challenge me.
The scripted greetings, the forced enthusiasm, all of it serves one purpose, to remind you of who holds the power. Because it's not enough for the system to exploit your time. It wants your energy. It wants your smile. It wants your spirit of gratitude, even while it devours you. And the managers, the bosses, the supervisors, they are not the originators of this ritual. However, they are its most loyal priests. They have been trained to value performance over principle and profits over people, and to enforce these rituals with a casual...
You'll see stickers like this sometimes, but I mean, humans aren't resources. They're not. Not in the way that they're dressed up in the business model. But most major companies have a human resources department. Typically with one worker dedicated to all the people on the, what's it called? Billing staff, role pay. Is it role pay? Bill pay, role pay. I can't think of it. Like I said, I'm struggling with the words, but I know you guys know what I'm talking about.
Almost calm and detached, like cruelty. Like, these people do this so calmly, but yet so cruel at the same time. It's no coincidence that narcissism is rewarded in this structure. The workplace does not need leaders, at least not in capitalism. In capitalism, the workplace needs...
And here he is talking about capitalism. I haven't watched this entire video. Capitalism is actively being demonized right now to promote and pave the way, ironically, for what I was complaining about, for fascism. Communism, to be specific. What do I mean by that? If things were for the people, by the people, and the republic was reconstituted, we'd be focused on mom and pop shops, and we'd be focused on communities. We'd be focused on communities that are connected, so to speak, which benefit one another based on resources, based on regional this, that, and the other thing. And it would be wholesome, and it would be harmonious. What I'm talking about also bleeds into why I mentioned Brennan Law. Because the Irish would make pledges with their neighbors and share things. And it was beautiful. This is not how things are today, by any leap of, the imagination. And this fucking idiot's promoting communism. In more than one way. Just to be clear. I mean, I'm not surprised by moments like this. I mean, I did take a leap. Kind of. I mean, kind of. What he initially was shopping around, does promote communism. But now that he's actively promoting the, capitalist agenda, demonizing this jazz, it proves my fucking point if you're capable of, connecting dots on your own. I'm burning out, you guys. I apologize, but this shit gets me fired up and this video's still not over, and I know I keep fucking clicking stop. I hate sitting through shit like this, and most people fucking lap it up like a dog who's thirsty in the sun.
Enforcers of compliance. It needs individuals who can look you in the face, see your humanity, and still choose to prioritize a company policy over your well-being. But the humiliation ritual goes even deeper. It's in the way that you're monitored. Not for the quality of your work, but for how well you conform to their behavioral expectations. Were you smiling enough? Did you say thank you in the correct tone? Did you look busy even when there was nothing to do? These are not metrics of productivity. They are tests of submission. And when you fail to perform the ritual correctly, there are consequences, write-ups, disciplinary sessions, coaching sessions, all methods to recalibrate your obedience. And this is how the modern workplace operates, not as a collaborative environment, but more like a theater of exploitation, where the appearance of harmony is maintained through a relentless pressure to comply. And the reason it feels so dystopian is because everybody knows that it's a lie. Everybody knows that it's a performance. The workers know it, the managers know it, corporate knows it, but the ritual continues.
So I've said part of this way too many times, and the other part I've been saying quite a lot, or often lately. Poorly put, sorry you guys. Most people out there are the angry villagers at the fucking door. They would string you and I up for doing the right thing. The irony is this guy is probably one of them. I mean, he's repeating the fucking garbage. He's not thinking about it. He's not cautioning you about the numerous red flags he's fucking rattling off. He's prattling on about, which means he's the problem. The other bit to this is I've mentioned that movie The Matrix from 1999 where they tell you in the fucking film anybody could be a goddamn agent. Now, the reason you're familiar with that is because our masters are pushing simulation theory, the holographic universe, and the multiverse of adult fairy tale nonsense, all of which is garbage, just to be clear, and it's in place to pave the way for a one-world religion. It's an agenda associated with this fascist horseshit that I'm complaining about.
Because it serves the machine. You have to understand that this is not personal, it's structural. You are not being devalued because of a personal failing. You are being devalued because the system was designed to extract your humanity while keeping you grateful for the opportunity.
The system's in place to quite literally use you and I up. That's what it's in place to do, is to use you and I up so we do not live our lives. Squeaking out 2 days a week, that's not life. That's not life. Work less, live more. I've rattled it off most of my life. And it's, for the most part, not possible. By design, not coincidence. And that should not only terrify you, it should piss you off enough to think for yourself, band together with other people, and see that this shit is fucking changed. But this is when idiots out there would ask me, well, what do we do? And step one's to think for your fucking self. Because if you're not, you're going to listen to shit like this guy's rattling off. Or you're going to get some prepackaged cookie cutter garbage in your fucking feed, and you're going to think it sounds good, and you're going to tell other people about it. Which means you're circulating the propaganda, and you're a useful fucking idiot. You're an angry villager at the door, an agent in the Matrix. But people don't understand that, because most people out there are gullible. And so it goes.
That's the real hustle. To convince you that enduring these daily microaggressions is somehow being a
Shut the
good
fuck
employee.
up.
That sacrificing your mental health is paying your dues.
If you ever hear people talking about mental health, this bleeds into psychiatry. This bleeds into big pharma propaganda. It's all in place to control you. It's another fucking red flag. In the old days, we'd get through things, roll with the punches, and make things work for the better, not the worse. But now we just, act like a bunch of whiny bitches and use our master's social engineering jargon, courtesy of the Tavistock Institute, intimately connected with eugenics and firmly rooted in fascist ideology. How ironic.
Somehow, loyalty to a company that sees you as expendable is virtue. But let me be clear. There is no ladder to climb. There is no next level that liberates you from these rituals. Because this system was not designed for liberation. It was designed for control. So when you feel drained after a shift, it's not just the labor that exhausted you. It's the spiritual weight of participating in your own dehumanization.
I agree.
And here's the truth that they don't want you to see. Your labor has value, but...
What did I say? They want to use you and I up. And that's exactly what they've done for generations. Technically centuries upon centuries. And nothing has changed. It's just been rebranded. It's been dressed up slightly differently. And people don't understand that. And they're certainly not willing to try to change it.
Your willingness to submit is what they truly covet. That is what they truly want. And that's the currency that they trade in. But once you recognize the ritual for what it really is, once you see that this humiliation was by design, then you regain the power to step back, to preserve your energy. And
did he stress anything having to do with mom and pop shops whatsoever or community in here? And I'm not talking about communism. I'm talking about community. I'm talking about, know-how, being worth your salt, a little bit of grit, doing the right fucking thing, buckling down, banding together, executing a thoughtful plan, putting the power back in the hands of the people. Did he do that? No, he didn't. He reaffirmed a number of red flags, which are all agendas, technically propaganda. And that's why this post is being circulated on the fucking DARPA internet. Specifically on TikTok, which is the dumbest, fucking most useless goddamn app I've ever used. Every single time something pops up in my fucking feed, it's propaganda. It's a moron circulating propaganda. Every single time. That doesn't always happen on the other social media platforms, but it happens every single fucking time. For the most part, is what I should say. I'm generalizing. More often than not. 98% of the fucking time. And it's very telling what TikTok is.
begin redirecting your labor to something that serves you. Because this machine cannot function without your participation. And the most revolutionary act that you can do in a system like this is simply to stop offering them your spirit. All right, so look, let's have an honest conversation.
If you listen closely, I rattled off a number of things you can use as a tool, you could think in terms of, and you could build on. Unlike what this guy rattled off and what the other fucking asshole rattled off. Just to be clear. But it's up to you at the end of the day to use the gray matter between your fucking ears. How many of you are willing and capable of doing so? And as always, what the fuck do I know? I'm censored on the DARPA internet. Enjoy your night.